My name is Rose Carter. I'm 50 years old, and for most of my life, I've worked the same tired hands to the bone just to keep my family from falling apart. I didn't plan for things to turn out this way. Who does? A widow with 2 kids trying to make ends meet. And yet, here I am, still standing, still fighting. I used to think life had a way of balancing out, that if you worked hard enough, paid your dues, loved your family enough, things would eventually turn out okay. But life is stubborn that way. It doesn't always follow the script we write for it, no matter how carefully we plan. It's been 5 years since my husband, Michael, passed away. He was the love of my life, my partner, my rock, but he's gone now, and the world still spins, even if it feels like it shouldn't. I didn't expect to raise our 2 children alone, but life doesn't always ask for your permission before handing you the next chapter. My son, Jamal, is 16 now. That boy, he's so much like his father it breaks my heart sometimes. Same deep voice, same broad shoulders, same kind heart when he's not being a teenager, that is. He's lost in himself, trying to figure out who he wants to be. We all go through that phase, I suppose. But watching him struggle, seeing him pull away from me, it's like he's slipping through my fingers. I don't know if he'll ever come back to the person he was before. And then there's Lisa, my 12-year-old girl. Oh, sweet Lisa. She's smart. I mean, real smart. I'm talking knows all the answers smart. And she's got a way about her, a way of making everything lighter, even when the world feels heavy. I look at her sometimes, and I can't help but wonder what the future holds for her. She's too young to be carrying the weight of our lives on her little shoulders, but she already does it so well. But none of this would be possible without my grit, my sweat, and the unspoken promises I made to my children. You know the kind of promises I'm talking about, the ones we don't say out loud, but we live by every day. I'll always provide. I'll keep you safe. I'll make sure you don't have to struggle the way I did. Some days, I feel like I'm barely making it, like I'm one missed paycheck away from losing everything. It's hard, keeping the lights on, paying bills, feeding these kids, but I make it work. Every single day, I make it work. My job isn't glamorous. I clean offices during the night shift, scrubbing, mopping, wiping away the remnants of other people's day. It's lonely work mostly. I'm in those offices long after the world has gone to sleep. It gives me time to think. Too much time, if you ask me, but it's work and I do it well. I've learned to take pride in it, even if it's the kind of job people don't notice. Jamal doesn't always understand. He's at that age, the age where he's figuring out what he believes in, what he wants to stand for. And sometimes he stands against me. Mom, why do you have to work all the time? He'll ask. You're always tired. Why can't you just stay home like the other moms? It breaks my heart, that question, because I want to be home too. I want to be there for him, for Lisa. But the world doesn't work like that. It doesn't hand you the life you dream of. Instead, you get what you earn, and what I've earned so far isn't much. But my love for my kids, my devotion to them is endless. I see it in their eyes. I see it when Lisa helps me cook dinner after school. I see it when Jamal, despite his anger, still looks out for his sister. I see it when Jamal tries to fix things around the house, even though he's not sure how to hold a hammer. It's not perfect, but it's something, and it's enough. I don't complain. At least, not out loud, because I promised Michael before he died that I would keep the family together, that I would be strong for them, and I will be no matter how hard it gets. Our house is small, too small for a family of 3, really, but it's all we can afford. The windows are cracked, the roof leaks when it rains. I've patched it up as best as I can, but there's only so much a woman can do with a handful of duct tape and a prayer. But I don't mind. The house is still home. It holds memories. It holds warmth. And when I'm exhausted, when I feel like I'm carrying the world on my shoulders, I remind myself that we're still here. We're still together. Rain falls outside, tapping on the roof like a soft drumbeat. It's been raining for days. The sound comforts me in a way. It reminds me that no matter how hard the storm, it eventually ends. And tomorrow is a new day. The debts are piling up, yes. There's always more month than there is paycheck. But I'm not a stranger to sacrifice. I've been doing it my whole life. Some nights, when I'm alone in the quiet of the office, I let myself think about the things I used to dream about before Michael passed. We talked about growing old together, about moving to a house in the country where we could finally rest, where the kids could play in the yard and have space to run around. We talked about it so many times, but dreams fade when you're faced with the reality of making sure your family survives. I hold onto those memories, but I also know that I have to be practical now. I have to keep us going. And so, every day I work. Every night I clean. And when the clock strikes midnight, I go home, tired but somehow still hopeful. Because as long as I'm breathing, I'll keep fighting for them, for Jamal, for Lisa. They deserve better than this. I know that. And maybe, just maybe, someday I can give them something more than struggle. But for now, this is what I've got. This is what I can give. I look out the window as the rain continues to fall, the city lights shimmering in the distance. Tomorrow is a new day, and I'll face it with the same strength I've always had. Because this family is everything. And as long as I've got breath in me, I won't let it fall apart. The sound of the rain was constant, relentless against the windows, a background to the weariness I carried every day. I was exhausted. The kids were exhausted. But this was life now. When you're barely holding it together, you learn not to look too far ahead, to focus only on the steps you can take today. Tomorrow's worries would have to wait. That Tuesday, I'd been running on fumes. I had spent the last 2 days picking up extra shifts at the office, trying to make sure I could pay the electricity bill that was overdue, but still trying to find time for Jamal and Lisa. They were my priority, always. I walked into the office that evening, my feet aching with each step. The floor was cold beneath my worn shoes, but that was nothing new. I took the elevator up to the 3rd floor, my mind still on the list of things I had to do when I got home. The same list that I'd been carrying in my head for the past few months. Fix the kitchen sink, pick up Jamal's textbooks, make dinner for Lisa. The usual. The office was quiet when I arrived, just as I expected. The cleaning supplies sat in the closet, the smell of antiseptic hanging in the air. It felt like no one had been there all day, and in a way, that was comforting. It meant I could move at my own pace. Maybe I could even finish early and spend some time with Lisa before she went to bed. I was pushing my cart down the hall, past the rows of empty cubicles, when I noticed a figure standing by one of the windows, tall, broad-shouldered. The silhouette was familiar, but it wasn't someone I had seen before. I adjusted my cleaning supplies and tried not to look too obvious, but curiosity had a way of creeping up on me. "Can I help you with something?" I called out, trying to sound casual, even though I was suddenly very aware of my work clothes, the faded blouse and the too loose skirt that hung off my hips. The man turned slowly, his face coming into view for the first time. And there he was, William Harris. I knew who he was, everyone did. He was a local businessman, successful in real estate, one of those people who always seemed to be in the news with his expensive suits and his polished smile. But I never imagined I'd run into him here, in this quiet office building in the middle of a late shift. "MS. Carter, I presume?" He smiled at me, and his voice was smooth. The kind of voice that made you feel like you were suddenly very small and very out of place. I nodded, a little surprised that he knew my name. I was just a janitor, after all, hardly the type of person someone like him would recognize. "Yes, I'm Rose. Can I help you?" "I just wanted to come by and thank you for your donation to the charity event last month," he said, stepping closer, his hands slipping into the pockets of his tailored jacket. "It was very generous. We truly appreciate it." "Oh, it wasn't much," I said quickly, feeling suddenly awkward. "I just donate when I can. It's It's important to give back, you know? I shifted my weight, hoping he wouldn't notice how nervous I was. He smiled again, and there was something warm about it, something real. It felt out of place, considering how different our worlds were. It's the little things that add up, he said. I believe in the power of kindness, especially when it's unexpected. I wasn't sure what to say to that. I didn't know how to respond to someone like him. He seemed so polished, so confident, so far removed from my life. "You're here for work?" he asked, glancing at the cleaning supplies I was pushing. "Yeah, just the usual," I said, motioning to the empty hallways. "I clean after hours. It's quiet, and it's something I can count on." He paused for a moment, looking me over, and for a split second, I felt like he was seeing me in a way that no one ever had, really seeing me. Not just the janitor, but something more. "I've been here for a meeting," William said, snapping me out of my thoughts. "I've got a few properties around here that I'm looking at, and I wanted to check out this building before I make any offers. The location's good, but, well, we'll see." I nodded, unsure of how to respond, but I was keenly aware that I should probably get back to work. But there was something about him that kept me rooted to the spot. "Have you been working here long?" he asked suddenly, his tone light but with an underlying curiosity. "About 3 years," I replied. "This job, it's not much, but it gets me by." "I can't imagine how hard it must be," he said quietly, his voice almost too soft. "A single mother, working 2 jobs, that's a lot of weight to carry." I didn't expect him to say something like that. Most people never acknowledged the weight of it. They just assumed I was doing fine, that I was fine. I felt a sudden swell of emotion, but I swallowed it down. There was no room for weakness. "It's not easy, but I manage," I said, forcing a smile. "We all have our battles." "You're right, but it doesn't have to be a battle every day," he said. There was a sincerity in his words that caught me off guard. "You know, if you ever need anything, I can help. There are ways to make things easier." I stared at him, not sure how to respond. Help? What kind of help was he offering? I didn't even know him, and people like him didn't just offer help without a reason. "I don't need charity," I said quickly, a little defensive. "I've got it under control." His expression didn't change, though. There was no judgment, no condescension, just a quiet understanding, like he'd seen this before and maybe even felt the same way. "I'm not talking about charity," he said, taking a small step closer. "I'm talking about an opportunity, a way for you and your family to have more. You don't have to struggle like this forever." I shook my head, unsure of what he meant. "I'm not sure what you mean." William didn't push the issue. Instead, he gave me a kind smile and a nod. "Maybe we can talk more later, but for now, please don't hesitate to reach out if you ever change your mind." I nodded, still uncertain, still a little wary. "Thank you," I said, though it felt like the words didn't quite fit. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, still processing the unexpected encounter. It was one of those moments when the world seems to slow down, and you're not quite sure if you've just had a dream or if something real has just happened. As I continued my shift that night, pushing my cart down the hallways, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted in the air. Something had changed. I wasn't sure what, but it felt like a door had just opened, one I wasn't sure I was ready to walk through. The days following my encounter with William Harris felt strange, like the air had thickened, pressing in on me, making everything feel heavier. It wasn't the first time someone had tried to offer help, but there was something different about William. It wasn't just his wealth or his polished demeanor. It was the way he spoke to me, like I wasn't invisible, like he actually saw me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more, something he wasn't saying, something that made me uneasy. I didn't think much about it for a few days. Life continued as it always did. I worked long shifts, cleaned the offices, and kept the house going. I tried to be the mom Jamal and Lisa needed, even though I could feel the weight of exhaustion creeping into my bones. But then, one Thursday morning, as I was finishing up my shift, I received an unexpected phone call. MS. Carter, it's William Harris. I hope I'm not interrupting. I froze, the mop in my hand hanging in midair. His voice was smooth, but there was something else in it, something urgent yet polite. No, not at all, I said, quickly wiping my hands on my apron, feeling the sweat on the back of my neck. How can I help you? I was thinking about our conversation the other day, he continued. I know I may have caught you off guard, but I wanted to extend an invitation. There's a dinner gathering I'm hosting this weekend, and I'd be honored if you and your family could join us. It's at my place. Just a casual evening, but I think it might be a good chance for us to talk more about some opportunities. Opportunities. I felt my stomach twist at the word. I had been so careful to guard against anyone taking pity on me or offering charity, and now, here was William, inviting me into his world with promises of opportunities. I didn't know what kind of game he was playing, but the thought of walking into his lavish world made me uncomfortable. I don't know, I stammered, my mind racing. I don't think we're really the right fit for something like that. Nonsense, he cut in, his voice warm but firm. You're exactly the kind of person I want to meet more of. I admire what you do for your family, and I think you might be surprised at how much you'll enjoy it. My wife will be there, and I promise it's just a friendly gathering. I couldn't help but wonder why he would want someone like me there. I wasn't part of his circle. I wasn't even close to his world. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that perhaps it wouldn't hurt to go. It wasn't like I had much else to look forward to anyway. I'll think about it, I said cautiously, knowing full well that I'd probably end up saying yes just to stop him from pushing. But I'll have to check with my kids first. Of course, he replied with an understanding tone. Take your time. I'll send you the details. Hope to see you there. When I hung up the phone, my heart was still racing. I wasn't sure what I was getting myself into, but something told me that this dinner might be a turning point in a way I couldn't yet see. The invitation hung over me for the next few days. I didn't bring it up to Jamal or Lisa right away. They had enough on their plates with school and their own lives. But on Friday evening, as I was preparing dinner, I finally decided to tell them. Hey, I got a call today from someone. I started, feeling the words weigh heavy in my mouth. It's William Harris. He's hosting a dinner on Saturday and invited us. Lisa looked up from her homework with wide eyes. The William Harris, the real estate guy? Yeah, I replied, nodding slowly. He said it would be a chance to talk about some opportunities. He wants us to come. Jamal didn't even look up from his phone, his expression unreadable. What do we need to go for? He muttered, clearly uninterested. I don't know these people, and I sure as hell don't want to sit at some fancy dinner just to hear him talk about business stuff. I sighed. Jamal had been distant for months, and nothing seemed to excite him anymore. I could tell he was just trying to avoid another situation where he'd feel out of place, but I wasn't sure how to explain it to him yet. I don't know, Jamal, but maybe it's a good chance for us to be around different people for a change. It won't hurt to go and see what it's about. We can leave if it feels wrong. Lisa, on the other hand, was more enthusiastic. I think it could be fun, Mom. We could wear nice clothes, maybe make a good impression. You never know who might be there. Jamal shot her a look. You always think everything's fun, huh? Like this is some kind of fairy tale. Lisa rolled her eyes but didn't argue. She had this uncanny ability to ignore Jamal's negativity. It made me smile a little, but inside I was still uncertain. I stood there for a moment, trying to make a decision. I'd never been one to put myself in situations where I didn't belong, but maybe this was different. Maybe it was time to step out of the comfort zone, even if it felt like I was walking into the unknown. All right, I said finally, feeling a mix of hesitation and hope. We'll go, but we're leaving if it doesn't feel right. I'm only doing this because I think we deserve something better. Jamal didn't respond, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. He wasn't happy about it, but at least he wasn't outright refusing anymore. And I decided was progress. Saturday evening arrived too quickly. I spent the afternoon searching through my closet, trying to find something that would fit in at a business dinner. Nothing I owned seemed quite right. I ended up settling on a modest black dress that had seen better days but still looked decent when paired with a jacket I hadn't worn in years. Jamal, still in his usual hoodie and jeans, barely looked like he cared. Lisa, however, was practically glowing, dressed in a simple, bright blue dress she had saved up for, her hair perfectly styled. She looked like a miniature version of someone who belonged at a place like this, and for a moment, I felt a pang of pride mixed with sadness. As we pulled up to William's estate, the grand house looming in front of us, I realized how out of place I felt. The lights glittered like stars, and the lawn was so perfectly manicured it could have been a painting. I took a deep breath before stepping out of the car, glancing at Jamal and Lisa. "Just remember," I said quietly, "we're here as guests, nothing more. We're not here to impress anyone. We're just here to see what he wants." Jamal didn't reply, but Lisa grabbed my hand and squeezed it. "We'll be fine, Mom. I promise." The front door opened as we approached, and there stood William Harris, smiling warmly as though this was the most natural thing in the world. "Rose, welcome. It's so good to see you again," he said, his smile genuine. His eyes lingered on me for a moment, as though weighing something before turning to Jamal and Lisa. "These must be your kids," he said, extending his hand to Jamal. "Jamal, Lisa, it's a pleasure to meet you." Jamal shook his hand, but there was no warmth in his gesture. Lisa, however, beamed at him and shook his hand firmly, her excitement clear. "Please come in," William said, stepping aside to let us into the house. I hesitated for just a second before following him in, the grandiosity of the place swallowing me whole. This was a world I didn't understand, but maybe, just maybe, it was one that could offer us more than what we had now. As I stepped across the threshold, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had just changed. The door shut softly behind us, the sound muffled by the luxurious interior of William's home. It was like stepping into a different world entirely. The air inside was crisp, cool, and tinged with the scent of expensive candles and fresh flowers. Every piece of furniture seemed to be placed with the kind of care I had never seen before. Everything matched, everything gleamed. The chandelier above us sparkled with light, casting soft reflections on the polished hardwood floor. I couldn't help but feel out of place. My shoes, though clean, were well worn, and my dress, though it had been my best choice, was still a far cry from the tailored gowns I imagined these people might wear. Jamal had already withdrawn into his shell, his eyes darting nervously around the room, while Lisa was drinking it all in with wide-eyed wonder. William led us into a spacious living room where a few people were gathered, casually chatting by the bar. The low hum of conversations and clinking glasses made it feel less like a dinner party and more like a gathering of people who belonged. I tried to hide the discomfort curling in my chest, but it wasn't easy. "Rose, I'm so glad you could make it," William said, his voice warm but somehow insistent. "Please make yourselves comfortable." Lisa smiled up at me, her voice barely a whisper. "Mom, this is amazing. It's so big." "Yeah, it's a little overwhelming," I muttered, more to myself than to her, trying not to let my anxiety show. "Let's just see how it goes." We made our way toward the group of people, and William introduced us to a few others. There were couples, some older, some around my age, and a few younger folks who were clearly comfortable in the setting, laughing easily, engaging in conversations that sounded more like rehearsed scripts than genuine interactions. William's wife, a poised woman named Claire, was standing near the bar, a glass of wine in her hand, looking effortlessly elegant in a soft, flowing dress. "Claire, I'd like you to meet Rose, Jamal, and Lisa," William said, his voice bright. Claire turned to face us with a smile that could only be described as welcoming, but still, I couldn't shake the feeling that she saw through me. It was the kind of smile people give you when they know you're not supposed to be there, but they'll be polite about it anyway. "It's so nice to meet you," she said, her voice polite, but her gaze flickering quickly over our clothes, almost as if she were appraising us. I forced a smile, hoping it didn't look as strained as it felt. "Thank you for inviting us," I said, my voice a little too sharp, but I couldn't help it. I didn't know how to act here. I didn't belong. William quickly intervened, leading the conversation in a different direction. "I'm glad you all could make it. Tonight's about connecting, sharing some ideas. No pressure, of course, just a chance to meet others who might share your interests." My heart pounded a little faster at his words. Interests? What interests could I possibly have in common with people like this? All they seemed to talk about were real estate deals, stocks, and their private schools. These were conversations I'd only ever overheard from the other side of the television screen. The evening unfolded in a haze of half-finished sentences and awkward exchanges. Lisa, to her credit, was eating it up. She hung on every word, her bright eyes soaking up the conversation, but Jamal? He had barely spoken to anyone, except to nod at the occasional comment. I could see his unease from across the room, but it wasn't my job to fix it. I couldn't even fix my own discomfort, let alone his. By the time dinner was served, I had only half-heartedly listened to the conversations around me. My mind was elsewhere, focused on my children. Jamal was picking at his food, barely making eye contact with anyone, while Lisa was asking the other guests more questions than I could keep track of, laughing and trying to fit in. Claire and William sat across from us, and although their smiles were warm, their glances were sharp, like they were testing us somehow. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were looking for something they wanted to see in us. I pushed the thoughts aside and focused on my children. This was for them. A chance for a better life, even if it felt more like a dream than a reality. Maybe William had seen something in me that I didn't even know existed. Maybe this dinner, this strange evening, would lead to something more. "So, Rose," William began after a long silence, his voice too calm. "Tell me more about your story. How did you end up in this line of work?" The question caught me off guard. I hadn't expected anyone to ask me about my life in such a direct way, and yet, there it was, hanging between us like an unspoken truth. I clean offices," I said quickly, not wanting to delve too deeply. "I do it to make ends meet. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work, and I've been doing it for a while now." William nodded slowly, almost as if he were considering something carefully. "I admire that," he said. "Honesty is a rare thing, but you're doing all this for your children, right?" "Yes," I said, my voice a little softer now. "They're my priority. I just want to give them a chance at something better. Jamal? He's going through a lot. And Lisa, well, she's still young, but I want to give her opportunities. I don't want them to struggle like I have." "Opportunities," he repeated, leaning forward. There was something in his voice that made me uneasy again. "You know, Rose, I've worked with a lot of people over the years. Some of them were where you are now, working hard, doing their best. But not everyone has the same opportunities. Some people never get a chance to rise." I bristled at his words, unsure of what he meant. I had fought my entire life to make sure my children had a better chance than I did. I didn't need someone like him telling me what opportunities I could or couldn't have. "We're not looking for handouts," I said, my voice firmer than I intended. "We're fine. We've made it this far. I'm not looking to change everything in one night." William raised his hands in mock surrender, his smile unwavering. "Of course, I didn't mean to imply that. It's just that sometimes all it takes is a little push in the right direction. And I have the means to offer that kind of push." His words hit me like a slap, though I knew he didn't mean them to. I had worked so hard, sacrificed so much for my children, and now this man, someone I barely knew, was offering to push us in a direction I wasn't sure I wanted to go. What was his angle? Why did he care so much? I appreciate your generosity, but I'll decide what's best for my family, I said, the words coming out colder than I intended. I just want my kids to have a shot at a good life. They deserve that. William's smile faltered for a brief second, but then he recovered, leaning back in his chair. Of course, Rose, I admire your conviction, but if you ever change your mind, the offer is there. I nodded, but inside, I felt unsettled. Something about the whole situation didn't sit right with me. Was he really just trying to help, or was there something else behind his kindness? Dinner passed in a blur. The conversation grew louder, more casual, but my mind stayed locked on the unsettling feeling in my chest. Lisa was still engrossed in the night, talking to the other guests, while Jamal barely touched his food, his eyes staring off into the distance. I couldn't help but wonder what he was thinking, what he was feeling in this world that felt so far removed from his own. When the evening came to an end, I stood up, tired and worn out. I had spent the night pretending to fit in, pretending to be someone I wasn't. But as I looked around the grand dining room one last time, I couldn't ignore the growing sense that things had changed. Maybe I wasn't ready for this new world, but perhaps this was just the beginning of something bigger, something I couldn't yet see. As we left the house and walked back to the car, I glanced at Jamal and Lisa. Lisa had a smile on her face, but Jamal, he looked more distant than ever. And for the first time in a long while, I wondered if this dinner had been a mistake. Or if, just maybe, it had been the first step toward something that could change everything. The drive home was quieter than I expected. Jamal was slouched in the back seat, headphones in, as usual, blocking out the world. Lisa, however, sat up front, her eyes wide with excitement. She couldn't stop talking about the people she'd met, the things she'd seen. It was as if she had stepped into a new world, one that was full of possibility, and she was absorbing it all like a sponge. "Mom, you should have seen their house," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. It was so big and everything was shiny. And the food, oh my God, it was amazing. I think I could get used to that, you know? I smiled faintly, trying to focus on the road as the rain continued to patter against the windshield. The familiar sound of water falling from the sky felt like a lullaby, soothing my tired nerves. But inside, my mind was still racing. Was I being too hard on William? Could I trust him? He'd offered us a life, something that seemed so far removed from everything we knew. But was it a life that came with strings attached? Was this the kind of life I was willing to gamble with? "I don't know, baby," I said softly, glancing at Lisa, who was gazing out the window. "It was a nice dinner, but we don't know those people. They live in a different world, honey. We need to remember who we are, no matter how much they have." Lisa frowned, her enthusiasm faltering. "But Mom, don't you think that if we had a chance like that, a chance to have more, we should take it? I mean, I don't want to struggle anymore." I understood the longing in her voice. I did. I had felt that same way, especially after Michael passed. The weight of everything, the bills, the uncertainty, the constant worry about whether we were going to make it, had become unbearable at times. And now, here was someone who could offer us an out. Someone who could give my children a future that wasn't weighed down by the hardships I'd known all my life. But as I looked at Lisa, her bright eyes filled with hope, I knew this wasn't just about me. It was about her too. It was about the kind of future I wanted for her. "I know it seems tempting, baby," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But we have to be careful. Nothing in this world comes free. There's always something someone wants in return, and I don't want us to lose ourselves just to have more." Lisa looked out the window again, her expression thoughtful. "I get it, Mom, but sometimes I just want to believe there's more out there for us, something better." I wanted to reassure her, to tell her everything would be okay, that I had it all figured out, but I didn't. I didn't know what the future held, and I couldn't promise her a perfect life. I could only give her what I had, my love, my hard work, my determination to keep moving forward, even when it seemed impossible. The rest of the ride was silent, each of us lost in our own thoughts. When we finally arrived home, the house felt even smaller than before. The familiar creaks of the floorboards, the smell of old wood and damp carpet, it was a stark contrast to the polished elegance of William's home. I stood in the doorway for a moment, looking out at the rain-soaked street, the world outside blurred by the heavy droplets. Jamal and Lisa both went straight to their rooms without a word. I knew Jamal was still processing everything in his own way. He hadn't spoken much at dinner, but I could tell that something inside him had shifted. He wasn't ready to embrace this new world the way Lisa had, and that worried me. I knew how much Jamal needed stability. He needed to feel like he belonged somewhere, and it wasn't going to be in the kind of life William seemed to be offering. I dropped my purse on the kitchen counter and walked over to the window, staring out at the darkness. The rain was starting to slow down now, and I felt the heaviness of the day settle in my bones. I thought about William's words, the way he spoke so easily about opportunities, the way he seemed to believe that all it would take was a little push for someone like me to step into his world. But what kind of world was that, really? Was it worth the risk? And, more importantly, was it the kind of world I wanted my children to grow up in? There were moments when I wondered if I was making too much of this. Maybe I was just scared of what it meant to truly step out of the life I had built, scared of losing the one thing that had kept me grounded, my integrity. But I also knew that nothing in my life had come easily. Every decision, every choice had been a struggle. Nothing had ever been handed to me. Still, there was something about William that nagged at me. He seemed to have it all together, and yet there was a certain coldness in him, an edge to his kindness that made me wonder what he truly wanted. People didn't offer their help without expecting something in return. And while I had no idea what he wanted, I knew it was important to keep my eyes wide open. I wasn't going to let my family fall into something just because it looked better than what we had. But then again, was I being too stubborn? Was this just my pride talking, or was I really doing the right thing? I didn't have an answer. Not yet. The next day, the kids were up early, their minds preoccupied with their own routines. Jamal went out with his friends, probably to avoid another awkward conversation, and Lisa buried herself in her books, her mind still spinning from the events of the night before. I, on the other hand, found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at the phone in my hand. I had the number. William had given it to me in passing, a casual offer that felt anything but casual. He had told me to call whenever I felt ready, whenever I wanted to explore the possibilities. It was all so much, so overwhelming, so uncertain, and yet there was a part of me that couldn't shake the idea that maybe this was the opportunity I'd been waiting for. Maybe, just maybe, this was the chance to give my children something better, a future free of the financial struggle that had defined my life. But was it worth it? Was it worth trusting a man whose world was so far from mine? A man who could change our lives in an instant, but who had no real idea of what it meant to struggle, to sacrifice, to fight every day just to keep your family alive. I stared at the phone for a long time before finally setting it back down on the counter. The decision wasn't going to be made in a moment. I needed to think. I needed time. But time was something I didn't have. Jamal, Lisa, they deserved better. And maybe, just maybe, this was the answer. Or maybe it was the beginning of something even more dangerous. Either way, I knew I couldn't keep standing still, waiting for the world to pass me by. I had to make a choice. The days that followed that dinner party passed in a blur. I kept myself busy, working long hours and doing my best to be present for Lisa and Jamal, though I could tell something had shifted in Jamal. He'd been quieter than usual, spending most of his time in his room or out with his friends. It wasn't like him to shut himself off, but I knew that dinner had stirred something inside him. I didn't know if it was fear, anger, or just the dissonance of seeing two different worlds collide so suddenly, but it was there. Lisa, on the other hand, was almost giddy with excitement. She spoke about William and Claire like they were old friends, recounting every detail of their house and how they treated her. Her curiosity had been piqued, and it seemed like there was no turning back for her. She had seen a life she could only dream of, and now nothing else seemed as good. I couldn't help but feel torn. I wanted to shield my children from disappointment, from the false hope of something that might not be real, but how could I deny them the chance of a better life? How could I look at Lisa's eager face and tell her that people like William Harris didn't just exist for people like us? I had spent my entire life fighting for the scraps of life, never imagining that something like this, a chance, an opportunity, however uncertain, could come our way. But now, with William's words echoing in my head, I wasn't so sure. There were things I didn't understand. Was he truly offering help, or was he just playing a game? What exactly was he expecting from me? I spent the following weekend thinking about it. I avoided the phone for the most part, too afraid of what the call might lead to, and yet a part of me felt an aching pull towards it. There was something in me that wanted to know more, to take that next step. But another part of me, the part that had kept my family together all these years through sheer will, was scared of what it might cost us. On Sunday evening, I found myself standing by the kitchen counter, staring at the phone in front of me. The number was still written down on a crumpled piece of paper, tucked in the drawer where I kept my bills and receipts. I hadn't touched it since that night, but there it was, staring me down, waiting for me to make a decision. I felt my heart beating a little faster as I reached for the phone. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew this moment was coming. I couldn't keep avoiding it. I took a deep breath, dialed the number, and waited. The phone rang 3 times before William's voice came through the receiver, smooth and warm as always. "Rose," he said, like he'd been expecting my call. "I'm glad to hear from you. I've been hoping we could continue our conversation from the other night. I've been thinking a lot about your offer," I said, my voice steady but unsure. I'm not sure what I'm looking for, William, but I think I need to know more. What exactly are you offering us? I just don't want to get my family involved in something that feels like charity." There was a brief silence on the other end, and then William's voice softened, the tone shifting from businesslike to something more personal. "Rose, this isn't about charity," he said, his words deliberate. "It's about opportunity. I've seen people like you, people who have worked hard, struggled, and done everything they can just to get by. But you deserve more than that. Your kids deserve more than that. I'm offering a way for you to give them the life they deserve. Not just a chance to survive, but to thrive." I swallowed hard, trying to hold back the emotions that threatened to spill out. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Jamal and Lisa, about giving them a chance to escape the cycle of struggle that had defined my life. But at what cost? "I can't just take something like that, William," I said, my voice wavering slightly. "I don't know what you expect in return, but I don't want to put my kids through another lie. I need to know that this isn't some kind of game." There was a long pause before William spoke again, his voice surprisingly gentle. "I'm not asking for anything in return, Rose," he said. "I'm offering you a chance to break free from everything that's holding you back. No strings attached. Think of it as an investment in your family's future, nothing more." I felt a knot form in my stomach as I processed his words. It sounded too good to be true, but then again, I had nothing left to lose. How could I deny my children a better life? "I'll need some time to think it over," I said, knowing that I couldn't make a decision like this on the spot. "But thank you for offering." "Of course, take all the time you need," William said, his tone kind. "But don't wait too long. The opportunity won't be available forever." I hung up the phone, my mind spinning. The weight of the decision hit me harder than I had expected. I wasn't just making a choice for me, I was making a choice for Jamal and Lisa. And the pressure of that, the weight of it, felt suffocating. That night, I sat in the living room with Jamal and Lisa, the three of us quiet in the dim light of the lamp by the couch. I could feel the tension between us, the unspoken question hanging in the air. What were we doing here? Were we making the right choice? I wasn't sure, but I knew that I couldn't keep avoiding it. "Mom," Lisa's voice broke the silence, her eyes wide and hopeful. "Did you call him? Did you talk to Mr. Harris?" I nodded slowly, not trusting myself to speak right away. "I did," I said finally, my voice calm but edged with uncertainty. "He's offering us something, a chance for a better life." Lisa's eyes sparkled with excitement, but Jamal, who had been silent, finally spoke. "And what does he want in return?" he asked, his voice flat but guarded. I met his gaze, feeling a mix of guilt and frustration. "Nothing, at least not directly. He says it's an opportunity for us, for all of us." Jamal frowned, his brow furrowing in disbelief. "Sounds too good to be true, Mom. I don't trust people like him. They don't just give things away." "I know," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I trust him either. But this is our chance to change things, to stop struggling." Jamal shook his head, standing up and walking over to the window. "I don't want to get my hopes up. Every time we do, it ends badly." I watched him, my heart heavy with the weight of his words. I had worked so hard to keep our family afloat, to protect them from disappointment, but maybe I had been wrong. Maybe the real danger was not taking the opportunity when it came. "We're not getting our hopes up," I said softly, more to myself than to him. "We're just thinking about it. I'm not going to let us fall for something we don't understand." But as I said those words, I knew I was lying to myself. We had already taken the first step. The rest of it would be up to us to decide. The rain had stopped, and the house felt eerily quiet. The world outside was still, as if waiting for something to happen. And maybe, just maybe, this was the moment that would change everything. I didn't know if I was ready, but I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The next day, I called William back. "I'm in," I said, my voice firm, despite the fear swirling in my chest. "But we'll be taking this one step at a time." "Of course, Rose. I'll help you every step of the way," he replied. "Welcome to a new beginning." And just like that, our lives were set on a new path. A path that I hoped would lead us to something better. But I wasn't sure what lay ahead. The days after I made the call to William felt surreal. I hadn't expected it to happen so quickly, hadn't anticipated the whirlwind of emotions that would follow. But now that I had taken that first step, there was no turning back. The weight of the decision hung over me like a storm cloud, pressing down on my every thought. Jamal had been unusually quiet since I told him about my decision to move forward with William's offer. I could see the confusion in his eyes, the wariness that came with not knowing what was coming next. He hadn't voiced his opinion, but I could feel the tension between us, like we were standing on opposite sides of an invisible line. Lisa, on the other hand, was practically bouncing with excitement. She couldn't stop talking about the possibilities, her wide-eyed wonder fueling my own hope. She was already planning what she would wear, what she would say, how she would present herself when we finally made the leap into this new world. It made me smile to see her so full of life, so ready for what might come. But it also made me nervous, because I knew this change, whatever it was, wasn't just about her. It was about all of us. As the week passed, I found myself restless, constantly checking my phone, waiting for William to call. It felt like a game, but one that was far too serious for me to play with casual indifference. What if we were making a mistake? What if we were falling into something that was too good to be true? I spent the nights lying awake, thinking about it all. The future. The choices. The promises William had made. His words echoed in my head, and no matter how many times I tried to push them away, they wouldn't leave. "You deserve more than this," he had said. "Your kids deserve more than this." But did they? Did they deserve the kind of life that came with strings attached? Did I want them to grow up in a world where everything was handed to them, where they didn't have to fight for what they wanted? I wasn't sure anymore. On Thursday afternoon, I received the call. It was William. His voice, smooth and confident, filled the silence of my living room. "Rose, I'm glad you called back. I've arranged a meeting for us tomorrow. I want to show you what I've been talking about, what I think could really make a difference for your family. Are you free?" "Tomorrow?" I echoed, my heart picking up speed. I hadn't expected it to move so fast, hadn't expected him to move forward so quickly. I'll need to check with my kids, but I think we can make it work." "Great," he said, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. "I'll send you the details. It's an opportunity that I believe could change everything for you. I'll see you then." I hung up the phone, staring at it for a long moment. The feeling of dread and anticipation settled heavily in my chest. What exactly was I walking into? The next day, as we prepared to leave for the meeting, I could feel the tension in the air. Jamal was uncharacteristically withdrawn, his face a mix of uncertainty and quiet anger. Lisa, on the other hand, couldn't hide her excitement. She kept talking about what she was going to wear, asking me if I thought she looked okay, even though she looked more than fine. It was like she had already accepted that this was the next chapter of her life, and nothing was going to stop her from stepping into it. I tried to act calm, tried to put on a brave face, but inside my heart was pounding. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. Was this the right move for us, or was I making a mistake, one that I couldn't undo? We drove to the address William had given me. The closer we got, the more I could feel the weight of the decision. The neighborhood around us grew more polished, more pristine, until the street we turned onto was lined with tall, elegant houses, their gates gleaming in the afternoon sun. When we arrived at the house, I was taken aback by its grandeur. The mansion was everything I had expected and more, impressive, overwhelming, and yet strangely empty in its perfection. The tall iron gates opened as we pulled up, and I was greeted by a sleek, modern design that screamed wealth in every detail. The kind of wealth I couldn't even imagine. We parked the car, and as we got out, I glanced at Jamal and Lisa. They were both quiet now, Lisa's excitement replaced by uncertainty, and Jamal was distant, his arms crossed as he looked at the house like it was some kind of alien structure. I didn't know what he was thinking, but I could see the walls going up around him. It was like he was closing off, building up a barrier I couldn't reach. William greeted us at the door, dressed in a sharp suit, as usual. He was standing with Claire beside him, her smile just as polished as ever, though her eyes still held that calculating look. "Welcome," William said, extending his hand. "I'm glad you could make it. I think you'll see that this is more than just an offer. It's a chance for a new beginning." We stepped inside, and I immediately felt the difference between this world and ours. The air was thick with money and success. The floors gleamed, the furniture was tastefully modern, and the space felt cold in its perfection. It was beautiful, yes, but it felt like a show. A show I wasn't sure I was ready to be part of. William led us through the house, talking about the properties he had invested in, the charities he supported, the ways in which he had made his wealth. The whole time, I couldn't help but feel that I was being sold a dream, one that I didn't fully understand. "This is what I can offer you," he said, leading us into a large room that overlooked a beautifully manicured garden. "A chance to break free from your past and step into a future where you and your children don't have to struggle." He paused, watching my reaction closely. I could see the expectation in his eyes, like he was waiting for me to make a decision. But I wasn't ready, not yet. I looked at Jamal, who stood at the far end of the room, his eyes scanning the surroundings with a skeptical gaze. Lisa was on the other side, talking animatedly to Claire, her face lighting up at every word Claire said. For a moment, I wished I could join her in that excitement, that willingness to believe that this was our moment. But the truth was, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if this was the right path for us. I appreciate the offer, I said, my voice steady though my heart was racing. But I need to know more. This isn't something I can just jump into without understanding the full picture. William's expression faltered for just a moment, but he recovered quickly. Of course, he said, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Take all the time you need. But remember, opportunities like this don't last forever. As we walked back to the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting had changed something between us. The house, the people, the offer, everything felt like a decision that was being made for us. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure: we couldn't stay where we were. Not if we wanted to give Lisa and Jamal a chance at something better. But what did that better really mean? What would it cost us to get it? I didn't know the answer, but I felt like I was getting closer to it. That night, after we returned home, I sat with Jamal and Lisa in the quiet of the living room. Jamal still hadn't spoken much, but Lisa, her face full of excitement, was the first to break the silence. "So, what do you think, Mom? Do we do it? Do we take the chance?" I met her eyes, seeing the hope there, and I felt the weight of the world pressing down on me. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about them. It was about us. "I don't know yet," I said quietly, "but we have to think carefully. This could change everything." Jamal finally spoke up, his voice low but firm. "Just don't expect me to jump in like Lisa. I don't trust people like that, Mom. You don't get to be that rich without stepping on someone else." I nodded slowly, feeling the tension in the room. I had always tried to protect them from the harshness of the world, but maybe the real challenge was helping them understand that the world wasn't as simple as we wanted it to be. I didn't know what the right decision was, but I knew one thing: the next few days would be the hardest of our lives. And whatever we chose, we couldn't go back. The house felt suffocating that night, the silence pressing down on us as if the four walls were closing in. I could feel the weight of the decision hanging in the air, thick and tangible. Jamal sat across from me, his eyes dark with uncertainty, his arms crossed tightly against his chest. Lisa was in the corner, quietly playing with her phone, but her eyes kept flicking up to me, watching for any sign of what I would do next. I wanted to make this easy. I wanted to give them something to hold on to, a dream of a better future, something that wasn't weighed down by struggle. But the truth was, I didn't know if this was the answer. I didn't know if I could trust William's offer, or if this was just another dream that would shatter as soon as we touched it. But then again, wasn't that what life was? A series of risks, a series of chances that had to be taken if you wanted to get somewhere. I had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, for my children to fall into the same cycle I had. And as much as I feared losing ourselves in this new world, I couldn't help but wonder if staying where we were, staying in this place of constant financial struggle, of barely scraping by, was really the best choice for them. The next morning, I found myself standing by the window again, staring out at the gray, overcast sky. The rain had returned, pouring down in heavy sheets that blurred the world outside. I couldn't stop thinking about the mansion, about the life William had shown us. It seemed too perfect, too out of reach, like a movie set that could collapse at any moment. But what if it didn't? What if it was real? I rubbed my temples, trying to focus. Jamal had barely spoken since we got home last night, and I couldn't shake the look on his face. He was angry, yes, but there was something deeper in his eyes. Fear, maybe. Fear of change, fear of the unknown. I couldn't blame him. I was scared too, but I couldn't afford to let fear make this decision for me. "Mom, do you think we should really do this?" Lisa's voice broke through my thoughts, her words tentative but hopeful. I turned to find her standing in the doorway, her hands clasped in front of her, her face full of expectation. I met her eyes, trying to give her the reassurance she needed. But the truth was, I didn't have the answers. I had no idea if this was the right choice, but I knew that whatever I decided, I couldn't let her down. "I don't know yet, baby," I said softly. I'm still trying to figure it out. She nodded, looking down at her feet. I could see the disappointment creeping into her expression, and it made my heart ache. I wanted to promise her that everything would be okay, that this offer from William was the answer to all our problems. But the truth was, I couldn't promise that, and I couldn't ignore the part of me that still felt uneasy about it all. Later that afternoon, William called again, his voice light and cheerful. "Rose, I wanted to follow up and see if you had any more questions about the meeting. I really think you and your family would benefit from this opportunity." I stood in the kitchen, the phone pressed against my ear, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've been thinking about it," I said slowly. "But I need to know more. I need to understand what exactly you're offering and what it means for my family. I need to know what it will cost us." There was a moment of silence on the other end, and then William responded, his tone still smooth but with a hint of something more calculated. "Of course, Rose, I understand your hesitation. This isn't a small decision, but let me make it clearer. What I'm offering is a chance to invest in your future. No more worrying about bills, no more scraping by. I want to provide you with a financial cushion, the ability to take care of your family without fear of what comes next. It's not charity. It's an investment in your family's potential." "An investment," I repeated, my mind racing. "And what do you expect in return?" William chuckled lightly. "Don't worry, Rose, I'm not asking for anything unreasonable. I just want to make sure you're in a position to succeed. My goal is to help people who deserve more than the hand life has dealt them. You, your children, what you have is precious, and I want to help you build on that." I exhaled slowly, trying to digest his words. His offer still felt too good to be true, but then again, what if it wasn't? What if this was a chance I couldn't afford to ignore? "I'll talk it over with my family," I said, trying to buy myself more time. "But I'll need to know exactly what you're asking of us. I need to understand everything before I make a decision." "Of course, Rose, take your time, but I'll tell you this, it's a rare opportunity. One that doesn't come around often, and when it's gone, it's gone." He hung up and I stood in the kitchen, staring at the phone. His words echoed in my mind, but they didn't bring me the peace I had hoped for. They only raised more questions. What did he mean by rare opportunity? What exactly was he offering, and why me? That night, after dinner, I sat down with Jamal and Lisa in the living room. The conversation had been hanging in the air for days, and I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. Jamal was still quiet, his arms crossed tightly, his jaw set in that way that told me he wasn't about to let this go. Lisa was on the edge of her seat, eager for some kind of resolution. She was waiting for me to make the choice, to make it clear what the future held for all of us. I talked to William again, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. He made it clear that this is a one-time offer, and he's offering us a chance to change our lives, to not worry about money anymore, to build a future where we don't have to struggle. Jamal's eyes narrowed, a mixture of skepticism and anger flashing across his face. "And what's the catch, Mom?" he asked, his voice tight. "You don't get something like that for free, there's always a price." "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But what I do know is that we can't keep living like this. We can't keep scraping by, hoping for a miracle that might never come." Lisa, sensing the tension, spoke up. "I don't care what it costs, Mom. I want this. I want something better for us. We deserve it." I met her gaze, her hope so clear in her eyes, it was hard to ignore. She wanted this, and maybe, just maybe, it was what we needed. Jamal stood up, walking toward the window. "I don't trust him, Mom. I don't trust people who don't have to fight for what they get." I watched him, knowing that this wasn't just about the offer anymore. It was about something deeper. It was about who we were as a family. Could we take a chance on this? Could we trust someone like William to deliver on his promises? "I know you're scared, Jamal," I said softly. "I am too, but sometimes you have to take a leap, even if you're not sure where you'll land." He didn't answer, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. Lisa, on the other hand, seemed resolute, her mind made up already. I sighed, my heart heavy with the weight of the decision. The path ahead wasn't clear and the risks were high. But maybe, just maybe, this was the chance we had been waiting for. Tomorrow, I would make the call. Tomorrow, we would step into the unknown and hope that it led us somewhere better. The morning arrived too quickly, and with it, the weight of the decision. I sat at the kitchen table, staring down at the cup of coffee in front of me, the steam rising in delicate spirals. The house was quiet. Jamal was still in his room, and Lisa had left early to meet a friend. For the first time in a long time, I was alone with my thoughts, the silence giving me space to reflect on everything that had happened, everything that was about to happen. The rain from the night before had stopped, but the clouds still hung low, casting the world outside in a dull, gray light. It felt fitting. The uncertainty of the moment mirrored the weather, and the weight of the choice before me pressed down like the dark clouds above. I glanced at my phone, the number still saved in my contacts. William had been waiting for me to make the call, and I knew it was time. I couldn't keep stalling, couldn't keep wondering what might be on the other side of this decision. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Jamal and Lisa, about giving them a life they didn't have to fight for every single day. But even as I reached for the phone, I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. Was I making the right choice? What if I was putting us all in danger, making promises I couldn't keep? I didn't know. I didn't have all the answers. The phone rang 3 times before William picked up. His voice was as smooth as always, but there was a note of anticipation in it this time, as if he'd known that today would be the day. "Rose," he said warmly, "I'm glad you called. I knew you'd be ready." "I've thought about it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I want to hear more. I need to know exactly what this opportunity is. What's in it for us?" William didn't hesitate. "It's simple, Rose. I want to offer your family the chance to live without the burden of financial stress. The ability to invest in yourself, in your future. I'm offering you a chance to start over, to step into a life where you're not constantly worried about where the next paycheck is coming from, where you don't have to choose between your children's needs and your own. It's an opportunity to be part of something bigger, something that could change everything for you." I let his words sink in, my mind racing. It sounded like what I had dreamed of, like the answer to every prayer I had whispered in the quiet of the night. But was it real, or was I just buying into the fantasy of a life that didn't belong to me? "And what do you want from us?" I asked, my voice low, careful. "What's the catch?" William paused for a moment before answering, his tone serious now. "No catch, Rose, not in the way you think. I'm not asking for anything outrageous. I want to help you build something lasting. All I ask is that you trust me and that you give your family the chance they deserve. It's not a handout, it's an investment in you, in all of you. An investment." I heard his words, but they didn't put me at ease. An investment always came with strings attached, didn't it? No one gave something for nothing, especially not someone like William. I took a deep breath, trying to make sense of it all. "I need more, William," I said, my voice firm now. "I need to understand what exactly this means for my family. What are we committing to?" Another brief silence, and then William's voice came again, softer this time. "I understand, Rose. This is a big decision and I don't want to rush you, but I'll be honest with you, this is the kind of chance that comes once in a lifetime. I've seen the potential in you, in your children. You don't have to live in fear of the future anymore. We'll make sure of that." I swallowed, my heart pounding. "I'll talk to my kids, but I'm not making any promises." "Of course," he said, his voice back to its calm, reassuring tone. "Take your time, but know that the door is open whenever you're ready." I hung up the phone, the weight of his words still pressing on me. He was offering us everything. Everything we had struggled for, everything we had worked for. It felt like a dream, but there was still something about it that made me hesitate. I sat at the table, my fingers running over the edge of my coffee cup. What was I really afraid of? The fear of failure, the fear of being trapped, or was I simply afraid of change, of stepping into a world I didn't understand, of leaving behind everything I knew, even if it was hard? I looked up when I heard Jamal's footsteps in the hall. He walked into the kitchen and leaned against the doorway, his arms still crossed tightly over his chest. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp, studying me. "So?" he asked, his voice flat. "Are we doing this?" I met his gaze, knowing that he was looking for answers I didn't have. "I don't know yet, Jamal. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I want to make sure it's the right choice, for all of us." He nodded slowly, his expression softening just a little. "I don't like this, Mom. I don't trust him, but I get it. I know you want better for us. I just don't want to lose ourselves, you know?" "I know," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm scared too." Jamal walked over to the table and sat down, looking out the window. "What if it's not as good as it seems? What if it's just another trap?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But we can't keep living like this, Jamal. We can't keep worrying about every bill every day. I want more for you and Lisa. I want to give you both a future where you don't have to fight every day just to make ends meet." He didn't answer, but I could see the struggle in his eyes. He wanted to believe me, wanted to believe that this decision could lead us to something better. But I could see that the fear was still there, the fear of the unknown. That evening, Lisa returned home, and I sat her down in the living room, wanting to talk to her before we made any final decisions. She looked at me, her face full of anticipation, her eyes shining with hope. "Mom," she said, her voice full of excitement, "what did he say? What's going to happen?" I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "He's offering us a chance, Lisa, a chance to get out of this cycle we're in, but it's not an easy decision. We have to be sure it's what's best for all of us." Lisa looked at me, her face full of determination. "I know it's scary, Mom, but we've always done our best, right? We've always worked so hard. Maybe it's time we get something back." I nodded slowly, her words echoing in my mind. We had worked so hard, but what if this was the opportunity we had been waiting for? I looked at both of my children, their faces full of uncertainty, but also full of hope. I knew this wasn't going to be easy. There were still so many unknowns, so many risks. But maybe, just maybe, this was the chance we had been waiting for. "I'm going to make the call," I said, my voice steady. "We're going to take this chance, but we'll do it together, and we'll make sure it's the right choice for all of us." Jamal looked at me, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. Lisa smiled, her excitement returning. And for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of hope flicker in my chest. The decision had been made. Now, all we had to do was walk through the door William had opened for us, and hope that it led to the future we all deserved. The phone call felt like it came too quickly after I made my decision, but it also felt like a relief. I'd been avoiding it for so long, hoping that I could avoid what came next, but the truth was that we needed this. I needed this. And maybe, just maybe, this was the moment that would change everything. I dialed William's number with steady hands, the feeling of anticipation building inside me. I was committed now, committed to something bigger than what we had. This wasn't just about money. It was about the kind of future I wanted to give my children, the kind of future they deserved. No more struggling, no more fear of what might happen tomorrow. This was our shot at something more. The phone rang twice before his voice came through, calm and reassuring. "Rose," William said warmly, as though this was a conversation we'd had 100 times. "I'm glad you called. I knew you would come around. I'm excited for what's next." I could hear the genuine enthusiasm in his voice, but the unease in the pit of my stomach wasn't going away. I had made the call, but it didn't mean I wasn't still terrified of what lay ahead. "I've thought it over, William," I said, my voice steady, though my heart was racing. "And I'm ready. We're in. I want to move forward." There was a moment of silence on the other end, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if he was waiting for me to say the words. "Good," he said finally. "I think you've made the right choice. This opportunity won't just change your family's life, it will give you the kind of stability and freedom you've always wanted. I'm going to arrange everything for you." I closed my eyes, letting his words wash over me. Stability, freedom. The idea sounded like a dream, one that I hadn't allowed myself to truly believe in for a long time. My whole life had been about surviving, about keeping my family fed, clothed, and safe, but this was something different. This was about thriving. "You'll receive the details by tomorrow," William continued. "We'll meet in person and I'll explain everything then. I'm excited to see where this will take us. You won't regret this, Rose." I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. "Thank you, William," I said softly, trying to hold onto the fragile hope he had given me. "We'll be ready." When I hung up the phone, I sat there for a moment, letting the silence settle in. It was official now. There was no turning back. That night, I gathered Jamal and Lisa together in the living room again, the weight of the decision pressing down on all of us. Lisa was sitting on the edge of the couch, her eyes wide with curiosity, her excitement barely contained. Jamal, as always, was more reserved, his posture stiff, as if the news I was about to share was something he hadn't yet fully accepted. "I called William," I said, my voice steady, but I could feel the tension in the air. "We're moving forward with the opportunity he offered." Lisa's eyes lit up immediately. "Really, Mom, you did it. We're really going to do this." I nodded slowly, the reality of what I had said sinking in. "Yes, we're going to do this, but we have to be careful. I'm still not sure what all this means, and we're going to take it one step at a time." Jamal looked down at his hands, his expression guarded. "You're trusting him, just like that?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I don't trust him, Jamal, but I trust that this is our chance to change things. I trust that it's a chance for you and Lisa to have a better life, for all of us to have a better life." He looked at me, his eyes full of doubt. "But what if it's not what you think? What if it's too good to be true?" I met his gaze, trying to offer him the reassurance I was struggling to find for myself. "I don't know, Jamal. I don't know what's going to happen, but I can't let fear control me anymore. We have to take a chance." The room fell silent as Jamal processed my words. I could see him trying to figure out how to navigate this, how to accept that his world was about to change in ways he didn't understand, and I couldn't blame him. I was trying to make sense of it all too. Lisa, sensing the tension, spoke up softly. "But Mom, we can't keep living like this, can we? Don't we deserve a chance to be happy?" Her words hit me harder than I expected. Lisa was right. We couldn't keep living in the same cycle of struggle, trying to make ends meet. We had to try for something more, even if it was terrifying. I had to believe that this was the right decision for her, for both of them. "I know, baby," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "We deserve more, all of us." Jamal didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood up, walking over to the window and looking out into the darkened street. I knew he was thinking, weighing the options in his mind. And I knew he wasn't convinced. "I just don't want to end up getting played, Mom," he said quietly. "I don't want us to lose everything for a dream that isn't real." "I don't want that either, Jamal," I said softly, my voice full of the fear I was trying so hard to mask. "But sometimes you have to take a leap. I can't keep waiting for the perfect moment because it may never come. We have to make this decision with what we have now, not with what we wish for." He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see the internal battle playing out in his eyes. I didn't know if he was ready for the change, but I had to believe that we would find a way through it together. "I'll trust you, Mom," Jamal said finally, his voice heavy. "But don't make me regret it." "I won't," I promised, though I wasn't sure if I was convincing him or myself. The next morning, we were ready, at least as ready as we could be. I had no idea what awaited us, but I knew that we couldn't keep living the way we had. This was our chance for something better, for Jamal, for Lisa, for me. And it was a chance I wasn't going to let slip away, no matter how uncertain the future seemed. We drove to the meeting with William, the car filled with silence, but not the kind of silence I had felt before. This time, it was a quiet kind of anticipation. The unknown was ahead of us, and we didn't know where it would take us, but we were going anyway. When we arrived at the address William had given us, it was as grand as the first time we had seen it. The gates opened, and we pulled into the driveway, the house standing tall and imposing, like a symbol of everything we had been striving for. William greeted us at the door, his smile as wide as ever, his energy contagious. He ushered us inside, and once again, I was struck by the overwhelming feeling of wealth and success that filled every corner of the house. "This is it," William said, his eyes gleaming. "Welcome to your future." I didn't know what that future held, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the verge of something big, something that could change everything. And maybe, just maybe, it was worth the risk. The house felt different this time. It wasn't just the size or the elegance of everything, although that was hard to ignore. It wasn't the polished floors or the pristine furnishings that had seemed so overwhelming at first. It was the feeling that, for the first time in a long while, I was standing at the beginning of something. A turning point. A chance for my family, and maybe for me too, to finally breathe without fear of what would come next. As William led us through the grand hallway, his voice full of confidence and warmth, I couldn't help but notice the look on Jamal's face. It was still a mixture of skepticism and guarded hope, but there was something softer about it now. I could tell he was trying to see beyond his doubts and see what we could have here, what this could mean for us. Lisa, on the other hand, was practically glowing with excitement. Her eyes were wide, taking in every detail, every corner of this new world she was entering. She had already started to dream about the life she wanted to have, and for her, this was it. This was the opportunity to escape the life we'd known, to step into something better. William ushered us into a large sitting room that overlooked the sprawling gardens outside. The sun was finally peeking through the clouds, casting a warm light into the room. The atmosphere was calm, almost serene, and for a moment, I let myself relax, as if I could forget the world outside and just be here. "This is where everything starts," William said, sitting down on a sleek leather chair. "What you see here is just the beginning. You and your family are going to have access to resources, opportunities, things that you never thought were possible. We're going to take this one step at a time, but I promise you, this is a chance for you to build the life you've always wanted." I sat down across from him, my heart pounding. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to see what he was seeing, to step into this new world with confidence. But as I glanced at Jamal and Lisa, I saw the uncertainty in their eyes, too. They were both waiting for me to take the lead, to show them that this was the right path. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just about trusting William anymore. It was about trusting myself. It was about taking control of our future and believing that we deserved better. "I know this is all a lot to take in," I said, my voice steady now, "but we've been given a chance. And I'm going to take it. Not just for me, but for you, Jamal, for you, Lisa. We're not going to be stuck in this place anymore. We're going to make something of ourselves." Jamal didn't respond right away, but I could see the way his shoulders relaxed just a little. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me feel like we were on the same page. Slowly, he nodded. "I just want to make sure it's real, Mom," he said quietly. "I don't want us to get caught up in a fantasy." "It's real, Jamal," I said firmly. "But we're going to have to work for it. Nothing worth having comes easy, but we're going to do this together. I promise." Lisa, who had been listening intently, finally spoke up. "I want to be part of this," she said, her voice filled with determination. "I want to help us make it. I want to be part of a family that doesn't have to worry about tomorrow." I smiled at her, feeling a swell of pride in my chest. "We're already a family that's strong, baby. This just gives us a chance to stand taller, to have the life we've always deserved." William's eyes gleamed, and I could see the satisfaction in his smile. He had been waiting for this moment, for us to fully commit, for us to believe in what he was offering. But I knew this wasn't just about William anymore. This was about us. About me finally making the decision to trust in myself, in my family, and in the opportunity before us. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of discussions and plans, each one bringing us closer to something new. William talked about the investments, the resources available to us, and the steps we'd need to take to secure our future. But the most important thing he gave us wasn't the opportunity or the promise of wealth. It was the confidence that we could do something more than just survive, that we could thrive. By the time we left, I felt a sense of clarity that had been missing for so long. The fear was still there, but it was smaller now, buried beneath a rising tide of hope. I looked at Jamal and Lisa as we walked out of the house, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something new in their eyes, a quiet excitement, a glimmer of something they hadn't allowed themselves to feel before. "Are we really doing this?" Jamal asked as we got into the car. "We're doing it," I said, my voice full of conviction. "This is our chance, and we're going to make it count." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of meetings, plans, and changes. The adjustments were harder than I had anticipated, and there were moments when I questioned whether I had made the right choice. But every time I looked at Jamal and Lisa, every time I saw the hope in their eyes, I knew I had made the right decision. It wasn't easy. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. I felt like we were living. To everyone who has followed our journey, who has supported us along the way, I want to say thank you. Your belief in us, your encouragement, has carried us farther than we ever imagined. Life isn't always easy. There will always be struggles, always be obstacles. But as long as we have each other, as long as we keep moving forward with love and determination, I believe anything is possible. So to all of you reading this, I wish you strength, hope, and the courage to follow your own path, no matter how uncertain it may seem. May your families be blessed with health, happiness, and the unwavering belief that you deserve all the good things life has to offer. Thank you for being part of our story. May you find the courage to step into your own future, just as we have found ours. With love, Rose Carter.